Is it possible for training, longevity, and efficiency to all fit in one sentence together? And better yet, all fit in a consistent weekly routine? I guess we're just gonna have to find out. This is how I train for longevity, aka life, throughout the week in the most efficient way possible. And do it without ever stepping foot in a gym. Okay, fine. I was in a gym a few months ago, but it was a hotel. Technically, I should get bonus points for that, right? Yo, what is up? Welcome back to another week of How to Health. My name is Kevin. I run liftandbalance.com, where we take aim at all things health and longevity and do it in an odd, weird, interesting, and highly sarcastic way. Today, I am going to walk you through my current protocol for maximizing not only the key aspects of aging gracefully, but feeling awesome in the here and now while doing so. Because we all deserve both, right? So first, we'll touch on the problem most people face when it comes to deteriorating health. Then, highlight the key areas of physical training for longevity. And finally, we'll go step by step through my weekly movement routine, talking about the strategies, goals, and concessions I make to get my pretty cool meat suit and 5-pound mushy membrane operating as efficiently as possible for as long as possible. And do it without spending hours in a gym.
I lift things up and put them down.
Now, before we start, I want to point one thing out. Although everyone's perfect routine is unique to their distinct lifestyle variables and goals, the true point that I really want you to take away from this video is the fact that not doing anything is one of the riskiest options on the table. And here's why. The problem. When it comes to losing their health, the burden of disease for the average person typically occurs as the body fails first. Although the current mental health epidemic is certainly challenging the thesis that mental decline, typically associated with conditions such as neurodegeneration, doesn't really occur until middle to late life and beyond. But staying on the non-cognitive side of the house, although everything is connected, the issues that tend to arise first are the slow and steady demise of systems such as skeletal muscle, joints, ligaments, and cartilage, bones, organ systems, immune system specificity, I think I got that one right, and the oh so damning loss of hair in places that you want it and growth of it in places that you don't. These are just a few. Now, the literature suggests that most of these conditions just mentioned are a byproduct of cellular and metabolic dysfunction over time, which we are just now beginning to realize as a society, obviously not fast enough, is heavily driven more than anything else by lifestyle, the food and water you consistently consume, the sleep you do or don't get, the nature you get exposure to, the toxins you avoid, and the activity that you consistently do or don't do. The facts of the matter are, these might very well be the strongest modulators of health and longevity that we have. Notice how there weren't any long, crazy drug names in there that you couldn't pronounce even if your longevity depended on it?
Medulla oblongata.
Yeah. Now, our modern day problem lies in the fact that over 85% of the adult population is thought to be dealing with some sort of silent metabolic dysfunction. The first usual culprit typically being insulin resistance. And unfortunately, new data suggests that the obesity epidemic is still very much on the rise, with the most vulnerable age group to weight gain in a 10-year time span being young adults. As they transition to the quote-unquote real world, they inherit the diseases that come with it. Now, you have to understand, all of this is like a perfect metabolic storm. There is no single driver, but likely a handful, and even more. For most, it literally ends up being death by 1,000 cellular and metabolic cuts. And just like healthy habits compound on each other, bad ones do too. And sadly, this is a much more common narrative. This brings us to one of the most common accelerators of this narrative, and the focal point of today. The lack of intentional movement throughout one's life is paving the way for disease and despair. Here's why movement matters. One of the biggest risks of death we modern humans face as we accumulate chronological years on this beautiful floating rock is becoming physically weak and feeble. Immobile, not being able to do one simple task like walking up and down these stairs without a serious risk of injury. This is a condition known as scarpopenia, or the natural deterioration of muscle mass as we age, a topic we have a full breakdown on here. As this acceleration of muscle loss happens, typically starting between the ages of 30 and 40, it not only impairs our physical capabilities, but also our biochemistry, because muscle happens to be a very important metabolic asset for energy regulation and disease prevention. Simply put, it's highly likely that a lack of muscle and musculoskeletal supporting tissue, think joints, ligaments, and cartilage, is driving the body to physically deteriorate much faster and sooner than it should, setting off a cascade of cellular and metabolic events over a 10 to 50 year time frame, aka adult life, that have the average person living 20% of their life, usually the tail end, in a state of morbidity or a state of disease, being somewhat disabled and impaired from doing things they truly love, things that bring them joy and make them get fulfillment from this thing called life. And I know what you're thinking.
That ain't right.
Thanks, Chris. But let me fill you in on something. It don't gotta go down like that. Why? Because we know the fix. Using it, aka being active, working out, exercising, moving that badonka-donk. So let's talk about it. The different areas of physical training for longevity. First, we start with cardiovascular and aerobic fitness, which are similar, but they refer to slightly different mechanisms. When we exercise, our breath and heart rate increases to pump blood and oxygen to our muscles. Cardio refers to the process related to the heart, whereas aerobic refers to exercises using oxygen. And our ability to do this and sustain this is our cardiovascular and aerobic fitness. And it's good to have. This improves the efficiency of your heart, lungs, and blood vessels, making it easier to pump blood through your body and making you more efficient at transporting oxygen. And in the long term, creating a less stressed overall heart because it could pump more in less beats. Next, we have strength, or the ability for muscle to exert its force on something. This, whether you know it or not, is something that we use each and every day, more like each and every minute or second, performing tasks such as standing and sitting, literally picking anything up, opening the impossible jar for mom, or carrying all the groceries in one trip. Real talk, they need to incorporate that into the World's Strongest Man competition ASAP. You get the point. Some sort of strength is absolutely critical for life, and that especially goes for when we get older. Now, I want to call out a common misconception. Most people link strength to muscle size, and that isn't necessarily the case. Although lean tissue mass is important and it is correlated to strength, data suggests that there is a big neuronal aspect to strength, and there could be a case in which hypertrophy takes place, aka muscle growth, but strength is minimally impacted. Just wanted to point that out. Don't want to get off topic because that is a conversation for another day. Next, we have mobility, which is the joint's ability to move through a certain range of motion. This is something that is lost from adolescence and typically not reacquired unless you do it intentionally. For this one, I have a challenge. Next time you are around a toddler, take notes on the mobility masterclass that is happening before your eyes. Instead of bending at the back to pick something up, they get down in the most picture-perfect low squat and investigate the item for minutes without discomfort. When was the last time you got in a low squat and sat there? I'll tell you, it's quite the hip awakening experience. Being mobile is one of the biggest aspects of not only being functional throughout life, but also preventing injuries. So we need it if we want to maximize longevity. And that being said, stability must also be considered. This is the ability of the body to maintain postural equilibrium and support joints during movement. Can you perform a movement under tension without the house of cards crumbling beneath? With its origin stemming from the core of the body, being able to hold your posture and physical composure through everyday tasks is critical for a long, healthy life, and something that can and should be actively trained. Oh, And of course, we can't move on from this conversation without talking about one of the great mottos of life, being able to bend without breaking, aka flexibility. As you can imagine, the ability to move muscles and joints through a full range of motion without ripping anything is kind of important. Flexibility helps performance and posture, promotes efficient movement, prevents incorrect body alignment, and decreases risk of injury, aka it's good for longevity. Now, I know we're all chomping at the bit, but before we get to my current protocol, I want to touch on something called training zones. This is the concept of delineating one's level of effort, measured in heart rate and more granular in energy source, at any given time of training. Zones range from 1 to 5, light to extreme intensity, and could be a helpful tool in formulating your training. Thus, why I bring them up. For example, ideal muscle building and fat burning states are estimated to be between zone 2 and 3. And if you don't have a heart rate monitor, a good assay to delineate if you are in the zone or not is to work just hard enough where it is difficult to have a fluid conversation with someone beside you. Talk to your imaginary friend or your dog. This is the highest level of exertion that is effectively pure mitochondrial oxidative phosphorylation before you start to net accumulate lactate or begin to move from fat to stored glucose, aka glycogen, as an energy source. And zone 4 and 5 are higher intensities that can be done in much shorter bouts. Think Tabata, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. In these more intense zones, you are highly reliant on anaerobic energy, no longer relying as fat as the primary source. And personally, for me, I aim to spend the majority of my workouts in zones 2 to 4, with a typical last leg burst into zone 5. And now, with the stage set, let's dive into the protocol. My protocol. First, let's start with the workout strategy. I start every morning the same way, weather permitting, outside, foot to earth, with some jumping jacks and yoga. And if you want to know why, I have a full video on this powerful 20-minute biohack right here. The jumping jacks are a great way to activate the lymphatic system, and the yoga flow is my favorite way to activate the nervous system. Warm up my muscles, stretch them out, lubricate my joints, and get some good stability work in before we move to the more intense part of my morning. Side note, yoga has been the secret for me going from a D1 athlete who couldn't even touch his toes to hanging out like a toddler in a low squat with ease. Simply put, the enlightenment of mobility and flexibility yoga has brought me has been profound. And it's my absolute favorite way to start the day. Thus, I do it every single morning, no matter what. Not only does rediscovering your mobility have substantial impacts on every aspect of your training, but it's huge for mitigating the risk of injury, and by association, the likelihood of longevity. After that, and a quick water break, we move into the fun part of the morning. Because life is busy, and I know what my current goals are, I combined many of the components of training that we discussed before into a highly efficient, super impactful 35 minutes. Typically into EMOM style functional sessions where I transition through 7 specific exercises every minute on the minute for 5 total rounds. This holds me accountable for 35 rounds each and every morning and the reps that come with it. And as a general rule, for me, I like to be working anywhere from 30 to 45 seconds per round. But all this depends on the velocity, load, and overall goal of the exercise. Oh, and if you're interested in what some of these workouts might look like, I got hundreds of them for you, right here on the channel. Take a gander. Now, all of these exercises typically fall under the category of functional, multi-muscle, and compound movement. And one of the concessions that I make from training this way is a potential plateau in muscle growth. But I'm not trying to be a bodybuilder. I want to be extremely functional, strong, but also very mobile, stable, flexible, and powerful. Single muscle isolations just aren't really appealing to me and my goals. But that doesn't mean they shouldn't be appealing to you and yours. It's all about context. And just to give an example, a common exercise that I could find myself doing each and every week is a snatch to reverse lunge and step forward to forward lunge complex. Here we have strength, power, velocity, mobility, stability, and since it's all being done on a clock, cardio as well. 2 reps each side, 4 reps total, gives me a good 20 seconds until I need to move to the next round. All of this, might I add, done outside a gym with a few kettlebells, resistance bands, medicine ball, battle ropes, and pull-up bar. Nothing against the gym, but you can definitely get shit done without it. Now, immediately following this 35-minute session, I cool down with 2 to 3 minutes of foam rolling, and then head up to the sauna for a 20-minute session. I do this because data suggests that heat exposure post-exercise can improve blood flow and the adaptive response. However, one thing that you may not want to do right after a workout, specifically if you have the goal of building muscle, is to hop in the ice bath or take a cold shower, as this has been shown to potentially dull the aforementioned response. Listen, ice baths are great. I do them, but as always, it's all about the context. And after a post-sauna shower and a full day of work with strategic movement breaks in there each and every hour, I aim to get a nice afternoon or evening post-meal walk-in, typically with the pup, to add some light zone 2 into the daily mix. All in all, here's a high level of what my week currently looks like. Monday is run day. We have a 40-minute nature run. Tuesday is my most dreaded workout of the week. It is my heavy day, typically leg focused and typically a little longer, around 45 minutes. Then Wednesday and Thursday, we have the 35-minute EMOMs. Friday is also a 35-minute EMOM, but it is a day where I add a little cognitive fun into the mix. Essentially, I scatter all of my workout equipment around with no plan, and I have to go from exercise to exercise, minute by minute, and make it through the full 35 minutes doing a different exercise each and every time. But that's not what you guys do for fun. Come on. Saturday is an active recovery day, typically a hike or something like surfing. And Sunday is a little more intense active recovery day where I test out the new workout of the week, which is posted each and every Monday on the gram. Again, this is just what I do in an effort to optimize efficiency, all the different types of physical training, short-term prosperity, and long-term longevity. There's probably a million different ways that I can improve the protocol. And I hope that's the case, because that's what makes it fun. The real goal is to still be having this fun when I enter my 10th decade of life. It's the daily micro habits that dictate macro longevity. And if you need some extra help with those habits, you can join the Longevity Weekly Challenges in Patreon, where we as a group implement sustainable, longevity-focused change week by week, habit by habit, focusing on getting healthy from the inside out. All the links for that, if interested, will be in the description below. There you have it. Would love to hear how you structure your protocol down in the comments below. Remember, it's the same habits that increase your odds, likelihood, and chances of longevity that make you feel effing awesome here and now. Who knew moving that badonkadonk was such a win-win? Oh, Richard Simmons knew? I guess he knew.